Let's bring in Republican Arkansas Senator Tom Cotton, who's been listening to all of this. Let me get your thoughts about what happened in the city last night there at Logan Circle. I'm sure you've been out for dinner in that area, and what the police chief was saying this afternoon. Senator?
Well, John, Washington, D.C., like so many of our large cities, is facing a historic crime wave this summer. It's been long and steady in building. Now, I know the liberal media in Washington is paying more attention today because it happened in a nice part of town outside fancy restaurants where politicians and bureaucrats eat, but it's been going on for a long time. A little black girl lost her life last weekend in southeast Washington from a shooting. There's shooting outside Nationals Park just last weekend as well. And this is all a result of naive and foolish policies that are letting prisoners out of jail early, sometimes because of false claims that we have an over-incarceration problem in this country or exaggerated fears about the coronavirus, not sending violent repeat felons to jail before they face a jury because of cities eliminating their bail system, of cities defunding their police, and the general anti-police climate that I hear about all across the country from officers who tell me retention is terrible and recruiting is even worse. If we want to stop this crime wave, we've got to get tough on crime, and we've got to start backing law enforcement.
Yeah, as we pointed out just a second ago, Chief Conte saying that he doesn't think that the calls to defund police are helping. Last hour, when we followed him as he was walking the streets around Logan Circle, he cited a stunning statistic that among this group of violent criminals, the recidivism rate is 87%. So if you're not locking them up, they're going to be back in the community toot sweet, and they're going to be committing crimes all over again.
Yeah, John, this happened in Arkansas just last month. A woman with a rap sheet as long as your arm ran over a police officer and dragged him to his death. She should have been in jail awaiting her trial for more than half a dozen drug and other violent offenses. She wasn't. Why? Because of exaggerated fears about coronavirus. And I got to say, if it's balancing between the lives of our law enforcement and innocent civilians and the potential risk, just the potential risk of coronavirus to serious and repeat felons, I don't think it's any mystery where I'm going to come down on that balance.
Yeah. Senator, we've got a lot of other things to talk about as well, including China and the calls for a new investigation into the origins of coronavirus. Here's what the Director General of the WHO, Dr. Tedros Ghebreyesus, said last week. Listen here.
We are asking, actually, China to be transparent, open, and cooperate, especially on the information raw data that we asked for at the early days of the pandemic.
So there you had the Director General of the WHO, who was seen to be in the pocket of China, now calling on them to be transparent, open up for a second investigation. China yesterday basically told the United Nations to pound sand. Any surprise?
Yeah, not exactly shocking there, John. I mean, first off, China has been lying and covering up about this pandemic from the very beginning. The World Health Organization's director has been in China's back pocket from the very beginning when he denied there even was a pandemic. They're the ones that sent the phony commission to Wuhan earlier this year to investigate it. That commission included Peter Daszak, the American nonprofit executive who Tony Fauci used to funnel hundreds of thousands of your dollars to the Wuhan labs. What's clear, though, is that any evidence about what happened in that lab or witnesses has probably been destroyed. Those witnesses have probably been killed or at least disappeared. It's very unlikely we're going to get a definitive answer absent some kind of defector who makes it out of the country. So the real question becomes, what will President Biden do to lower the boom on China, to hold them accountable for unleashing this plague on the world? There's a lot we could be doing that we're not doing.
I want to ask you about mask mandates, because it looks like the White House is sort of leaning in that direction. We had President Biden the other day in that town hall say that he believes that the CDC will soon issue guidance calling on all students under the age of 12 to wear masks in school. Some people looked at that and said, wait a second, he's putting his thumb on the scale here, sort of telling the CDC what to do. Ron DeSantis, though, governor of Florida, said he's having none of that. Listen to what he said yesterday.
There's been talk about potentially people advocating at the federal level imposing compulsory masks on kids. We're not doing that in Florida, okay? We need our kids to breathe.
So after that, the White House came out and criticized DeSantis. Listen to what Jen Psaki said.
That puts kids at risk. It's not aligned with public health guidelines. We know masks are not the most comfortable thing. I will say my kids are quite adjusted to them.
So the federal government can issue guidance. It cannot issue mandates to anything other than federal employees or people who work at the national parks. So you've got the governor of Florida saying, I don't think this is the right thing to do, and the White House coming down on them for it, or coming down on him for that. Is that the White House's role?
No, John. Well, but first off, let me say, nobody elected the CDC. No one elected Tony Fauci to make these decisions. Advisors advise, elected officials decide, and the American people elected Joe Biden and the members of Congress and our governors and our state legislatures to make these decisions for us. If you just turn these decisions over to a bunch of public health bureaucrats, of course, the only thing they're going to consider is what they think is in the best interest of public health. They're not going to balance off interests like whether people can make a living to put food on the table, or whether kids can learn at school, an integral part of which is be able to see each other's faces and their teachers' faces, to understand emotion, to be able to see lips and so forth. And we're not doing it in Arkansas either. Our legislature passed a law that prohibits any school from requiring anyone to wear masks. That's exactly as it should be.
All right. Well, you know, it's supposed to be local control of school boards, and the state governors are supposed to be the ones who can make the decisions based on the best guidance. But clearly, the White House wants to lean in on this issue very heavily. Senator Tom Cotton of the great state of Arkansas, good to see you today, and good to see you at the grocery store yesterday as well.
Thank you, John.